Part 24. The space doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Feng Yuan Kandi. Chapter 231. Zhang Ziluo is still relatively cautious. And most importantly, she suspected that she was related to the Wei family. The Wei family is a taboo in the entire Yun kingdom, representing collaboration with the enemy and treason. Although she believed that the Wei family had not collaborated with the enemy and treason, the imperial court clearly stated this, and most people believed it without knowing the truth. If a caring person discovers soap and covets the secret recipe, don't find anything when the time comes. There are also her parents, who must have some secrets. She was also worried that someone would find out about her parents, which would put them in danger. So Zhang Ziluo is more cautious. Zhang Ziluo had been shopping in the town before, and also in the county town. She had never found such a thing as soap. She remembered what Mrs. Kui said before when she was washing clothes. She said that when she was in the capital, everyone liked to use scented soap and bath beans to wash clothes. However, bath beans and fragrant peppers are very expensive and are made from various spices, so ordinary people cannot afford them. Villers generally use soap locust or plant ash to rinse and wash their clothes. Making soap is cheap and easy to use. Mrs. Kui trusted Zhang Ziluo. She nodded and said, "Okay, if you need to do anything, tell mother and she will help you." Zhang Ziluo said, "Mom, help me burn some of these plant ashes, and I will burn some shells." Zhang Ziluo burned the shells. After burning, mash them into powder. Mrs. Kui followed Zhang Ziluo's instructions and burned the plant ashes first, then poured water into the mixture, stirred it, and then used gauze to filter out the plant ashes water. After that, pour the shell powder into the filtered plant ash water and stir. After stirring, filter through gauze. Pour some mugwort water into it, stir and let it sit. Seeing Zhang Ziluo put it aside for a while, Mrs. Kui held the jar and said, "Aren't you going to use the lard?" Zhang Ziluo said, "I want to use it, but before using it tomorrow, put it in a place with the water first." Good. Mrs. Kui is a little itchy and wants to know what soap looks like. If it could be made so easily, toiletries would be very cheap, much cheaper than soap. But she couldn't imagine what soap looked like. After putting the things away, Zhang Ziluo looked at a long bamboo tube. This is the same bamboo she cut down at Nyushan village before. Most of the bamboo was given to her parents, and she also kept a few for use. Bamboo tubes are good for holding soap. After working for a long time, Zhang Ziluo and Mrs. Kui went into the house to see how their hair was doing. Open the lid and find that the dough has puffed up. The color looks really nice when the face is opened. There is also a faint aroma of green grass. Zhang Ziluo smiled and said, "It tastes like mugwort, and the steamed buns made will also taste like mugwort." Mrs. Kui went to get the large panel and placed it on the big table so that she and Ziluo could sit and knead the dough to make steamed buns. Then she scooped some dough and put it on the board to prevent the dough from sticking to the board. Chang Ziluo brought the basin to the panel and poured the noodles out of the basin. Then knead the dough as a whole. Kneading the dough also requires skill, and you need to knead out all the air inside. Knead it almost and break it into pieces. Mrs. Kui picked up pieces of dough and started kneading them. Mrs. Kui is now learning how to make and knead dough from Zhang Ziluo. She also knew how to knead the dough and how to add sugar, eggs and other things when kneading the dough. No wonder the steamed buns made by Ziluo are so delicious. At first she just made steamed buns randomly, and the steamed buns she made were hard, tasteless and unpalatable. The steamed buns made with Ziluo are soft, smooth, and delicious. Of course she has learned it now. She knows that there are some things to pay attention to when kneading dough. Knead it into a round ball and put it on the grate to wake up for a while. After waking up for a while, boil it in a pot with cold water. Zhang Ziluo steamed the steamed buns herself, counting the time, and stopped burning firewood when it was almost done. Turn off the heat and simmer for a while. Steam is emitted, and the room is filled with aura. But it's the smell of steamed buns. Mrs. Kui said, freshly steamed buns are the best. No matter how delicious the steamed buns are, the second and third meals are still not as delicious as the first meal when they are warmed up. Mrs. Kui remembered that Ziluo said she would cook braised pork for dinner. Mrs. Kui still remembers the taste of the braised pork made by Ziluo. It was so fragrant and went well with rice. It's most delicious when eaten with freshly baked steamed buns. After the steamed buns were steamed, Zhang Ziluo looked at the sky and saw that it was almost time. Soon Kui Hejin came back from school. She started to prepare the dishes. Mom, let's cook 4 dishes tonight. 4 dishes, can you eat them? Generally, there are 3 of them, and they only cook 2 dishes, but if they cook more of each dish, it will be enough for 3 people. Zhang Ziluo said, just take the steamed buns that are just out of the pot and eat more vegetables. Good. In fact, Mrs. Kui also wants to eat a few more flavors, but she is afraid that it will be too hard to cook Ziluo too much. She learned some cooking skills from Ziluo, but the taste of her cooking was still different from that of Ziluo. She felt that cooking might also depend on a person's talent. Zhang Ziluo went to the backyard vegetable garden and picked a few eggplants. Mrs. Kui took the eggplant and prepared to wash the vegetables. She asked, Ziluo, after washing the eggplant, should I cut it into slices and fry it? Zhang Ziluo said, no, you don't need to cut it into slices, just cut it horizontally and then vertically, leaving the head on, and then put it in the pot to steam. Then I will pound some minced garlic to make the soup, and then pour it on the eggplant and stir it. This kind of steamed eggplant is also delicious. If she doesn't make braised pork, she will make braised eggplant. But there are already braised vegetables, so just steam the eggplant. The 4 kinds of vegetables have different tastes, so they are delicious when eaten. She picked green peppers again and made fried meat with green peppers. Use the loofah to make loofah soup. In this season, all kinds of vegetables are ripe, so it is the season to eat more vegetables. Mrs. Kui gave Zhang Ziluo some advice, and Zhang Ziluo started cooking. Zhang Ziluo never finds cooking troublesome. She likes to cook delicious food. Cooking delicious meals that the whole family likes to eat will give Zhang Ziluo a sense of accomplishment. She also saw that the apricot trees on the hillside behind the house were full of apricots, but they were not ripe yet. When they are ripe, they can be canned. After making it, store it in the cellar. When the weather is hot, take it out and eat it as a cold drink. It will relieve the heat. If you can't finish the apricots, you can also make apricot preserves and apricot jam. Zhang Ziluo likes the season because there are many delicious foods in the season. Just as Zhang Ziluo was making the last loofah soup, an anxious voice came from outside, Master, Master, are you at home? When Zhang Ziluo heard this voice, she was stunned for a moment. Isn't this Wei Xingyi's voice? Speaking of it, she agreed to be Wei Xingyi's master, but she didn't see Wei Xingyi much during this period. Last time he came back from a mission and was a little injured, and he also told her about the war outside. Zhang Ziluo hurriedly handed the spoon to Mrs. Kui and said, Mom, look at the pot, and I'll go out and take a look. Good. At this time, she didn't care to explain to Mrs. Kui why someone called her master. Zhang Ziluo hurriedly ran to the door. Wei Xingyi's voice was filled with anxiety, and it seemed like there was something urgent. End of chapter. The space doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fenyuan Kandi. Chapter 232. Zhang Ziluo quickly ran to the door of her house and saw Wei Xingyi standing at the door with blood stains on his body. Zhang Ziluo was shocked. What's wrong with you? Wei Xingyi's eyes were a little red, but he controlled his emotions and said, Master, this is not my blood, but the blood of the brothers in the agency. Master, is there any way you can save them? There are several brothers, and Dru said there is nothing we can do. Those people are all brothers from the agency, and they are all his partners who have gone through life and death on missions. He couldn't help but watch them die. He thought that the master was so powerful, and he wondered if there would be any way. Zhang Ziluo's expression changed and she said, Dru told you to come find me. No, Dru couldn't help it, but he didn't say anything. Dr. Chu kept in mind the young master's instructions and naturally would not reveal any information about Zhang Ziluo. Zhang Ziluo was surprised that Wei Xingyi really believed her. Okay, don't worry, I'll help you take a look. With that said, Zhang Ziluo quickly went into the house to get the medical kit, spoke to Mrs. Kui again, and then got on Wei Xingyi's carriage and went to the town. In fact, Zhang Ziluo's medicine box had been kept in the space, but in order not to expose the space, she just ran into the house. On the carriage, Wei Xingyi told Zhang Ziluo what was going on. We took on a mission this time, which was to transport 2 trucks of medicinal materials to Ningzhou. Unexpectedly, we encountered bandits robbing and blocking the road. Zhang Ziluo frowned and said, your martial arts are not weak, and ordinary bandits can't do anything to you. Wei Xingyi looked solemn and said, they don't look like ordinary bandits. They are well trained in fighting, cooperate with each other tacitly, and have sophisticated weapons. Otherwise, the brothers would not be so seriously injured. It is normal for escorts from the agency to sometimes encounter bandits, but they have experience in dealing with bandits. Moreover, their martial arts are not weak, and they lead a lot of people, so ordinary bandits can't do anything to them. They also know the fighting methods of some bandits, so they are not afraid at all. Zhang Ziluo asked, where are the medicinal materials? The medicinal materials were stolen. Because the medicinal materials were stolen, their agency must also bear these losses. Wei Xingyi felt very heavy. Zhang Ziluo said, it looks like a well-trained army. They look well-trained in combat. They are obviously like the army. I just don't know if they are from the emperor's side or from King Duan's side. Maybe there are other forces that want to fish in troubled waters. In war, medicinal materials are also extremely precious and cannot be bought with money. Soldiers who are injured and need medical treatment need medicinal materials. Zhang Ziluo analyzed it and felt that the matter was a bit serious. Wei Xingyi thought that his master was really good and he could analyze the problem in one go. My father also said the same thing when he came back. It's just that we specifically avoided Qingzhou and didn't accept the mission there this time. We specially bypassed Qingzhou and passed through Ningzhou next to it. Who would have thought that? Zhang Ziluo said, once a war breaks out, there will be effects everywhere, but some can be seen on the surface and some can't be seen on the surface. You don't have to blame yourself. In such a situation, the most important thing is to save your life. Keep the green hills alive, so you don't have to worry about running out of firewood. Wei Xingyi originally blamed himself and felt heavy. But after listening to the master's words, he felt much better. Wei Xingyi clenched his hands into fists and said, Master, do you think there will be people like this here in Bizhu pretending to be bandits to rob things? Zhang Ziluo said, so your agency should make preparations early. Especially the autumn harvest will be in 1 month. It will be the time to harvest food. Places with food will not be peaceful. Zhang Ziluo had seen it in her dreams before. So it's better to prepare early. Their village and Xinshan village have made preparations, and everyone will move to the mountains in advance when the time comes. Grain will also be harvested a few days earlier, the sooner the better. When Wei Xingyi heard these words, he felt like a thunder suddenly split open his chaotic brain. Yeah, why didn't he think of it? Master, thanks to you telling me before that I needed to stock up on food, my parents secretly stocked up on some food for emergencies. I'm just afraid that if there is no movement at the guard station, those forces will break into the county and rob the food. At this moment, Wei Xingyi also realized the seriousness of this matter. Zhang Ziluo said, "Does your Wei family have agencies in other cities?" Wei Xingyi nodded and said, "Yes, but it's just to facilitate our mission and pick us up. There are few manpower arranged. It's not like this is the headquarters of the agency." Zhang Ziluo thought for a moment and said, "Then do you know how the fight between Prince Duan and the Emperor went? These two men are nothing more than competing for that position. Originally, after fighting for a while, the army trained by King Duan was no match for the imperial court. The emperor mobilized elite troops to suppress the rebellion, but I don't know why. Every time King Duan couldn't hold on, there seemed to be a force that helped Duan. King, I heard that the higher UPS suspect that there is someone behind King Duan, but this is all hearsay, and no one knows whether it is true or not. Anyway, the war is still going on now, and there is no way to quell the rebellion. The emperor does not dare to go to war, because if there is a war, the enemy will lead troops to attack the border, and our country, Yun, will not be able to bear it." Zhang Ziluo raised her eyebrows and glanced at Wei Xingyi. "You do know this?" "That's because when we go on missions in various places, we must know this information, otherwise, if we don't know what the court is doing, we won't be able to avoid danger. Dangers that can be avoided in advance must be avoided in advance. For example, where there is war, we will not accept the mission there. My dad said that it would be good for us to learn more about this news and learn to analyze it." Zhang Ziluo nodded. That was indeed the truth. As if she thought of something, her expression condensed and she couldn't help but ask, "What kind of elite soldiers are sent by the imperial court?" Wei Xingyi thought for a while, then lowered his voice and said, "It is a team formed by the former Wei Jiajin." Zhang Ziluo's heart beat several times and she said, "Didn't the Wei family army die on the battlefield back then?" "Yes, but there are still 20,000 Wei soldiers left in the capital. Those are young soldiers who have just been trained for a long time. Many are 16 or 17 years old. Old General Wei did not lead them to fight. He missed them. If they train for another 2 or 3 years before fighting, the survival rate will be higher. I never expected that General Wei and the others were all dead. They said they were collaborating with the enemy and treason, but we absolutely don't believe it. Even though these soldiers have not been trained by General Wei for long, they are still recognized as elites. I heard that they are different from other soldiers." Zhang Ziluo's heart was beating fast and she asked, "What's the difference?" "I can't tell. I heard people say that they are stronger than other armies because of their blood and ability. Later, although they probably used the same method to train soldiers, I heard that they still can't compare with these people. I don't know what kind of charm old General Wei has." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Space Doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fenyuan Candy. Chapter 233. Speaking of these, Wei Xingyi felt that he had a lot to say to Zhang Ziluo. Perhaps because he regards her as his master from the bottom of his heart and trusts her in his heart, he talks a lot. "Oh, by the way, I heard that several sons of the Wei family often went to the military camp for training at that time. Maybe with them around, everyone should train more actively. After all, they are so powerful at such a young age. How can they not irritate the big guys?" Zhang Ziluo imagined that scene and couldn't help but think of the Wei family men in the dream. She couldn't help but say with sore eyes, "You do know a lot." "Oh, it's not that I know much. We are running escorts. Everyone will talk about some things in private. Something happened to the Wei family a few years ago. My father took me to the capital to deliver things. I saw a lot of things during that trip." Wei Xingyi still remembered that even though he was young at that time, he felt heavy and uncomfortable after seeing those things and hearing some words. He grew up listening to the stories of General Wei, who was the hero in his heart. How did it get to that level? So you said that if the elite soldiers sent by the imperial court were former Wei family soldiers, they would never do anything to rob things. Wei Xingyi didn't believe it. Either it was done by the people who were in charge of the king. Zhang Ziluo's lips curved in a cold arc. Maybe it's not impossible to send troops to quell the rebellion openly, and then send people to do some secret things secretly. Zhang Ziluo has no good impression of the man who rose to power by stabbing his brother in the back. If that person had competed with the prince for that position from the beginning, it would be respectable to attack the prince. But he was not taken seriously since he was a child and was bullied by the palace people. However, he grew up under the protection of the prince. The prince loved and protected him as a brother, but he secretly acted cruelly. With the prince's ability, you will be prepared to guard against a person and you will not fall into a trap like the witchcraft case. But it was the witchcraft case that caused him to fail. This was such a shame for him. A smart man, who is also a prince, will not be foolish enough to engage in witchcraft. There must be someone framed. The person who left the prince defenseless was the emperor who now ascended the throne. In the whole thing, he was the biggest gainer. In fact, when Zhang Ziluo dreams about the Wei family and hears Kui Hejin say something, she sometimes analyzes the original situation and suspects that the person who set up the situation is the current emperor. At that time, he was still an inconspicuous prince, a prince who was not taken seriously. You can see how deep it is hidden. Such people are good at using dark means to achieve their goals, and it is not surprising to send people to rob food and medicine. Wei Xingyi's expression changed drastically. Master, you are still the best. Why didn't he think of this? Master, do you think it's strange when I say this? Zhang Ziluo shook her head and said, no, it's just that others say that the Wei family is collaborating with the enemy and treason, but I think you don't believe it. Yeah, I just don't believe it. Actually, a long time ago, when I was a child, I went to the capital with my father. The capital looked prosperous, but it was not a place that ordinary people could go. I didn't understand anything at the time. When my father was talking to someone, I wanted to go to the other side to look at it. At that time, when I was little, I thought the things in Beijing were nice and fun, but when I came to the street, a carriage almost hit me. My father, hearing the noise, he hurriedly rescued me, but the other party said that we had rammed their carriage and asked my father and I to kneel down and apologize. At that time, I didn't understand but was a little scared the people above could control the life and death of others with just a word. They also beat my father with whips. Later, the eldest son of the Wei family showed up. He was about 10 years old at the time. He passed by on horseback on the street with a spear and rescued my father and I. He is really good. He is a young man with bright clothes and angry horses. He is so sunny. In fact, the most important thing is that he is not old, but he is very imposing. The man who made things difficult for us was the son of the Minister of War. Later it turned out that it was him, so we had to give up and leave. The eldest son of the Wei family rescued us and left. Later, I heard about it from people on the roadside, and I learned about the background of the two parties. Speaking of these, Wei Xingyi's eyes turned slightly red. Yes, he didn't dare to think about how such a good young man could die in battle and be convicted of treason. Zhang Ziluo took a slow breath and said softly, don't think about this. One day the world will give justice to the Wei family. Yes, Zhang Ziluo just believes that the pure will become pure and the turbid will become turbid. One day, the slander on the Wei family will be washed away, and someone will clear the Wei family's name. Wei Xingyi's eyes lit up. Master, do you believe it too? Zhang Ziluo gestured with her hands. Shh, there are some things that you know in your heart and you don't need to say them out loud. Yes. Wei Xingyi was very excited and trusted his master more and more. He had a thrilling feeling in his heart that someone finally recognized what he said. As he was talking, the carriage arrived at the office. Wei Xingyi took Zhang Ziluo in. 6 beds were placed in a special room, and 6 injured people were lying there. Dr. Chiu is checking the patient's pulse and treating the wound. However, some of the wounded had more serious wounds and their breathing became weaker and weaker. Dr. Chiu is also worried about another situation, that is, there will be a plague. Wei Xingyi said, the injuries of the others have been stabilized by Dr. Chiu. There is no problem. These 6 people are very serious. Dr. Chiu breathed a sigh of relief when he saw Zhang Ziluo coming. These people were saved. He looked at Wei Xingyi. This boy was a little lucky. He actually recognized Mrs. Zhang as his master. Zhang Ziluo checked the injuries of these people. The injuries were indeed serious. The wounds were infected. The most important thing was that these people were poisoned. Zhang Ziluo's expression condensed, those bandits' weapons are poisonous. Dr. Chiu nodded and said, yes, I can see it too. The other people's injuries are minor and I have detoxified them, but these people are seriously injured and the poison is almost entering their heart veins. I can only use silver needles to help them suppress these poisons and protect your heart. Wei Xingyi looked at Dr. Chiu and then at the master, and found that Dr. Chiu was very polite when talking to the master. Master is really good at healing. Master is very good at martial arts, can cook delicious food, and has medical skills. He is simply amazing. But this is not the time to talk about this. Master, can they be saved? Zhang Ziluo checked and said, well, there is no problem. It will be fine after a month of rest after treatment. Zhang Ziluo said, took the medicine box and started treatment. Acupuncture is the time, wounds are to be treated, and wounds are to be stitched. He also prescribed medicine and asked Wei Xingyi to take the medicine. Drink medicine every day and you will get better. When Zhang Ziluo returned from the agency, Wei Xingyi found a carriage to take her off. On the way, she suddenly heard a sound. Then she saw a person falling in front of the carriage, a woman. But this woman looked very thin and looked very embarrassed. Her feet were bloody, which showed that she had walked for an unknown amount of time. Zhang Ziluo got off the carriage, walked over and knelt down to take a look. For some reason, she felt that this woman's appearance was familiar, and she looked a bit like someone. The space doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fenyuan Kandi. Chapter 234. Chapter 234, Woman's Identity, First Update. Zhang Ziluo pushed her messy hair to one side and took a closer look. She seemed to recognize something, and she was shocked. Zhang Ziluo quickly stretched out her hand to feel the woman's pulse. Her face turned pale when she felt her pulse. Zhang Ziluo's expression calmed down and became serious. Without caring about anything else, she quickly took out the medicine box, took out the silver needle, and inserted it into several of the woman's acupuncture points. At the same time, he injected wood-type powers into her body. She was actually given a fatal poison, and it was really a miracle that she was still alive. Zhang Ziluo will save her no matter what. As time passed, Shi Er, who was driving the carriage, looked a little anxious, but he did not dare to talk nonsense. This is a person that their young masters respect and protect. Moreover, he still remembered the first experience of being beaten down by this girl, so he instinctively felt a sense of fear. He just felt strange that Mrs. Zhang didn't look like a kind-hearted person who was willing to meddle in other people's business. Why would you save a person who fainted on the way? In this troubled season, it is most taboo to meddle in other people's business. About a quarter of an hour later, Zhang Ziluo took away the silver needle and moved the woman on the ground to the carriage without feeling dirty. When she was moving, she realized that the woman was very thin, with not even a few kilograms of flesh on her body. I have soiled your young master's carriage, please turn around and tell him. Shi Er hurriedly said, our young master said that in everything, Miss Zhang is the most important thing. Originally, the young master wanted to send Miss Zhang back in person. Since Miss Zhang has so much respect, the young master went to invite her and deliver her in person. But it was Miss Zhang who said that she should let him get medicine and take care of his brothers, and just find someone to take her back. What's strange is that they told the young master that they would deliver it, but the young master had to deliver it in person. But as soon as Ms. Zhang said something, the young master listened. This shows the importance of Ms. Zhang to the young master. But if the young master likes Miss Zhang, it doesn't look like it. I always feel that the young master treats Miss Zhang as an elder. But when he thought about it, he felt like he wanted to slap himself in the face. Ms. Zhang was younger than the young master. Zhang Ziluo didn't waste any time, got into the carriage and hurried home. When they arrived at the door of the house, Zhang Ziluo took the woman out of the carriage, and she was anxious to go back and recover. Zhang Ziluo said, "You didn't see anyone tonight, you understand." Zhang Ziluo wants to protect that woman. She met Zhang Ziluo's sharp and cold gaze, and a cold air rushed directly to his feet. He nodded vigorously with a strong desire to survive. "Don't worry, Miss Zhang, I will take you back. The journey will be smooth." Zhang Ziluo then calmed down. It's not that she doesn't trust Wei Xingyi, but there is no airtight wall. There are so many people in the agency, and it would be bad to accidentally leak the news. Besides, this woman felt familiar to her from the first sight. Because she sees Mrs. Kui every day, and this woman is somewhat similar to Mrs. Kui, so she naturally feels familiar. So she instinctively wants to protect her. Although Mrs. Kui rarely mentioned other members of the Kui family on weekdays, sometimes she could feel that Mrs. Kui treated her better than Kui Hejin. She returned to her parents' home, and Mrs. Kui also supported her very much. Mrs. Kui often said that she came from that time, so she understood. And sometimes Mrs. Kui would look to the south in trance. She thought that Mrs. Kui would miss and worry about her daughter, so she put part of her feelings for her daughter on her. So if this woman is really Kui Hejin's sister and Mrs. Kui's daughter, she must be protected. She drove the carriage and left quickly. Ms. Zhang was so scary just now. This reminded him of the first time he saw Ms. Zhang and the others being beaten violently. It was completely a one-sided crushing. Of course, it also made them realize that there are people outside the world. After returning home, the young master exercised crazily, and they also followed the young master's exercise. He did not go on this mission. Lin Fan and Ding Pai followed. If the two of them had not been training intensively with the young master on weekdays, they would not be able to run even if they faced those powerful bandits with gauze. Fortunately, they were agile and saved a life. So strictly speaking, they still have to thank Ms. Zhang. Ms. Kui and Kui Hejin are cooking dinner at home. Hearing the noise, Ms. Kui hurriedly came out of the house. "Is Ziluo back?" As soon as he finished speaking, he saw Zhang Ziluo coming in with a woman in her arms. It was a little dark in the yard, so I couldn't see very clearly. But Ms. Kui didn't know why, her whole body froze. Why does she feel that her heart is beating very fast? Zhang Ziluo said to Ms. Kui, "Mom, you go and lock the door first, and we will go into the house to talk." Well. Ms. Kui hurriedly closed the courtyard door, inserted the latch from the inside, and then put the chain on the door and locked it. Their house is at the back of the village, across the back mountain. For safety reasons, Ms. Kui also locks the door twice at night. Zhang Ziluo carried the woman into the bedroom door and laid her down on the kong first. Kui Hejin was flipping the pot, and suddenly the shovel in his hand fell off. Second sister. Yes, although she couldn't see her appearance clearly, Kui Hejin knew at just one glance that this was her second sister Qingkai. It's just that the second sister was supposed to be the young lady of the Pei family, and she was supposed to have a noble status. How could she be like this? Zhang Ziluo watched Kui Hejin follow her into the house and said, "You watch her, I'll make the medicine. Mrs. Kui also followed into the house at this time. When she saw the woman on the Kong in the house, she shed tears of distress and said, "My dear, how could you become like this? Who harmed you? It's like this." Mrs. Kui sobbed and cried. Her own daughter was in this state, unconscious, and she felt as if her heart was being cut by a knife. Kui Hejin tried his best to suppress his emotions and keep himself calm. "Mom, Ji Luo went to make medicine. Second sister should be fine." Mrs. Kui finally came back to her senses and said, "Yes, yes, Ji Luo is here." Mrs. Kui was so panicked just now. She wanted to reach out and touch her daughter, but she didn't dare to hold her daughter's hand for fear of hurting her somewhere. Ji Luo quickly prepared the medicinal materials and then boiled the medicine in a clay pot. Fortunately, in order to heal Kui Hejin's body, she prepared some medicine in the space. Coupled with some spare medicinal materials that I bought before, I prepared a new medicine. Listening to the sounds in the house, Zhang Ziluo knew in her heart that she was indeed Kui Hejin's sister. Mrs. Kui asked Kui Hejin to take care of her in the house. She hurried to the stove house to find Zhang Ziluo and said, "Ziluo, that's Qingkai, Hejin's second sister, she. Mrs. Kui wanted to ask something, but she didn't know where to say it. Zhang Ziluo hurriedly boiled the medicine and explained, "Mom, I picked her up on the roadside on the way back. She was poisoned by a deadly poison. I don't know what happened. The amount of poison was not much, maybe I vomited it out in time, or I didn't drink much, and I used an excellent detoxifying pill, so I protected my heart and could still breathe." End of this chapter. The space doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fenyuan Kandi. Chapter 235. Mrs. Kui's face turned pale with fright, and her body shook violently. Mrs. Kui said with a trembling voice, "Then, will she be okay?" Zhang Ziluo nodded and said, "Don't worry, Mom, she will be fine. Although her condition is a bit serious, she will get better as long as she takes good care of herself. But the recovery time may be a bit long. I haven't checked her physical condition yet, she may still have some external injuries." Zhang Ziluo sighed in her heart. Had she not had the wood power and spiritual spring, medical skills alone would not have been able to cure her. I don't know what she went through. Mom, I want to know who wants to harm her. She was worried that someone would find this place and it would be detrimental to Kui Qingkai. Mrs. Kui shook her head and said, "I don't know either. Maybe I won't know until Qingkai wakes up. This child used to have a strong temper, but she must have suffered a lot to suddenly become like this. She clearly married Pei Nanshan 2 years ago, and the Pei family clearly said they would treat her well." Mrs. Kui actually understands in her heart that a woman's natal family is also very important. Being powerful and having no power are completely different statuses. She didn't need to think about it to know that it was the Kui family's exile that affected Qin Ci. Pei family. Mrs. Kui nodded and explained, "Well, the Pei family is in Nanzhou, south of Zhongzhou. The Pei family is a famous scholarly family. The family once had a great master, a chief assistant, and a great scholar. It was also a famous family. It's just that the Pei family is not as poor as before, but even so, the Pei family has a large collection of books, the Pei family has a good reputation, the children of the family value reading, and Pei Nanshan is also very knowledgeable. When he went to Beijing to take the exam, he happened to be seen by Qingkai." Zhang Ziluo was a little confused and said, "Mom, what happened next?" According to this situation, a daughter-in-law of a duke and a down-and-out scholar are not from the right family. And it's still a distant marriage, do you agree? According to normal logic, the government would not agree. The daughter you hold in your hand must find a good marriage for her in the capital, instead of letting her marry far away. Once you get married far away, sometimes it's beyond the reach of your natal family to help. This is the case in this era. This era is all about being well matched. Ms. Kui wiped her tears and sighed, there is nothing we can do if we disagree. We all love Kinkai and can't bear to make her sad. She went on a hunger strike and refused to eat. She became very haggard in a short period of time, so we discussed it. With the Duke's office here, even if the Pei family is not as good as before, as long as they help secretly, their daughter's life will be good. In addition, her father has asked people to find out about Pei Nanshan. He is indeed a talented person and has good knowledge. As long as he is willing to work hard and get a good name, we can also help arrange a position for him in Beijing. So I agreed. Zhang Ziluo asked, Mom, does the Pei family agree? The Pei family naturally agreed. Even the old lady of the Pei family personally came to the capital from Nanzhou to the Kui family, saying that she would treat Jingxi well. Then have you asked Pei Nanshan? Ms. Kui was stunned. In this era, parents' orders and matchmakers' words are important. It seemed that they all instinctively thought that Pei Nanshan agreed. Think about it carefully, Pei Nanshan is also very good to Kinkai, and there is nothing to criticize. Zhang Ziluo had some guesses in her mind. But generally speaking, this is the case because Kui Kinkai no longer has the protection of her natal family. If Kui Kuagong's mansion was still in good condition, no one would dare to let her become like this. The Pei family should protect her even more. Zhang Ziluo said, Mom, don't think too much. No matter what, the second sister is fine now. We'll see what she says when she wakes up. If she wants to stay at home, then stay at home. Now that the conditions at home are good, I can definitely take care of myself. There are many rooms in the house and I have a place to live. Ms. Kui was so moved that she didn't know what to say. Very few sisters-in-law are willing to accept their sister-in-law to live at home. She didn't even know how to talk about it, but Ziluo had already said it. After Zhang Ziluo boiled the medicine, she went into the house and asked Kui Kinkai to drink it. Ms. Kui said, Ziluo, you haven't rested since you got home. It's better for me to do it. After giving Kui Kinkai medicine, Zhang Ziluo checked her pulse, but she was fine for the time being. The family will have dinner together. If you sleep at night, Ms. Kui and Kui Kinkai will be in the same room, making it easier to take care of Kui Kinkai. After washing up in the evening and going back to the house, Zhang Ziluo looked at Kui Hejin sitting at the table, looking lost in thought, and said, Are you thinking about your second sister? Kui Hejin nodded. What are you worried about? Kui Hejin said, Some people don't want the second sister to live. Zhang Ziluo wiped her wet hair, then sat down at the table and said, According to you, someone put the fatal poison on your second sister's body. But to be honest with you, there is a chronic poison in her body that has been instilled for 2 years. Normally, something happened to your Kui family only a year ago, so it shouldn't have affected this 2 years ago. The fatal poison in her body was administered more than a month ago. Are you sure she didn't drink it herself? Kui Hejin said, My second sister is not of that temperament. She has a strong temper but will never commit suicide casually. She is a woman. There are not so many restrictions on girls in my Kui family, and the family's requirements for them are not so strict. She can wield swords and guns, which she learned from her grandfather. Her grandfather taught her many things, so she has a strong temper. I will never seek death easily. Kui Hejin still has a certain understanding of his sister. Besides, I have asked people to inquire about Pei Nanshan before, and he will not drug Kinkai. Kui Hejin believed in his judgment on Pei Nanshan. Zhang Ziluo said, Then someone gave her chronic poison 2 years ago. I just heard from my mother that she married into the Pei family 2 years ago. It shows that someone does not want her to live. The Pei family is not as simple as it seems. Does a scholarly family with strict rules also have secrets that outsiders don't know about, such as house fights? Women's battlefield is more complicated. Kui Hejin was thoughtful. If it was just the Pei family that did this, it would be okay, at least Kinkai would be safe here. Zhang Ziluo's expression changed, and she suddenly understood. You are worried that the person above sent someone to do something, or gave a secret order, such as asking the Pei family to kill Kinkai. A long time ago, the current emperor was actually trying to think of a way to deal with your Kui family, but he never found the handle to do it. Killing too many ministers will not help consolidate his position. Zhang Ziluo said, your second sister will wake up in the next 2 or 3 days. If she says it herself, it will be better than our guess. The two of them had a conversation and it was getting late. Zhang Ziluo and Kui Hejin went to bed. In the middle of the night, Zhang Ziluo actually dreamed of coming to a house. The architectural style of this house is like that of Jiangnan. Nor is it Weifu. Zhang Ziluo turned around and found that this was the Pei Mansion. Pei Mansion, is this where Kui Kinkai has lived in the past 2 years? Zhang Ziluo walked forward curiously, and suddenly she was taken into a house by a force. A thin and beautiful woman was sitting in front of the window copying scriptures. She wrote a lot on the table, and her wrists were sore from writing. But there was not a single maid serving in the house. Even the tea is cold. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Space Doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fenyuan Kandi. Chapter 236. Zhang Ziluo walked over and took a look, and could see that the woman's handwriting was very beautiful, which showed her writing skills. This kind of word is amazing at first glance. Is a good word. This also reminded her of Kui Hejin's calligraphy. Kui Hejin's calligraphy was more beautiful, with each stroke like flowing clouds and flowing water. It's just that the characters written by men are different from those written by women. After writing for a while, she rubbed her wrists with her hands. Perhaps after writing for a long time, her wrists sometimes trembled slightly and she felt a little weak. At this time, there were some whispers outside the door. The young lady is copying scriptures in the house. Why don't you come in and wait on her? She is still a young lady, but no one in the house treats her like a young lady. My wife ordered her to copy the scriptures, but I don't know when she will be able to finish them. After copying the scriptures, my wife will punish her to do other things. The Duke's palace is gone, but she is still staying in our Pei family, and she is not afraid of hurting the Pei family, huh? Who knows, many people just write a letter of divorce to drive the person away, so as not to cause trouble in the mansion. I don't know what the young master thinks, but he still lets her stay in the mansion. Huh, the young master doesn't like her at all. It was the Kui family who forced the young master to marry her. She really takes herself seriously. Why doesn't she go to the exile with the Kui family? Most of the maids are also people who praise the superior and disdain the inferior. Probably because they have unspeakable thoughts about the young master. The young master is so good looking, they feel that the young master has been taken over by the young lady. If Kui Kuagong's mansion was still in good condition before, they would naturally not dare to arrange the young lady like this. But who made the Duke's mansion disappear? The maid's voice in the yard was a bit loud. The house can be heard clearly, but the young women just copy books quietly. They seem to be not affected. They also seem to get used to such words, and they are not moving. She didn't even frown. Just looking at the woman's thin figure and straight back makes people feel sad. I don't know what she went through in the house. Time passed little by little, and a nun came over and said, I pay my respects to you, madam. Mother Li, is there something wrong? My wife sent an old slave to ask if I have copied the scriptures. Please send them to my wife. Yes. The woman packed up the copied scriptures, sorted them out, and took them to the front yard of the madam's yard. Madam's yard is also relatively clean, and she wears plain clothes. Mother. The woman bowed slightly, and the lady asked everyone to step aside. Then he took the scripture copied by the woman and nodded. You wrote well. It was my mother who taught me well. The lady said, do you blame me? My daughter-in-law doesn't blame her mother. I know her mother is trying to protect me. Madam looked slightly pleased and nodded, you are a smart child. You can save your life by looking like this. I have asked people to pack up some clothes and send them to Bizhu quietly. I think your family can use them. The clothes are all half-worn and not new. They use them inconspicuously. I sewed the silver leaves into the middle of the clothes so that no one can see them. The woman suddenly knelt down and said, daughter-in-law, thank you mother. You kid, you're not a stranger to me. Get up quickly. The lady helped the woman up and looked at her thin appearance. You should also take care of yourself. If your family members know that you are like this, they will definitely be worried. Pay family. What the madam wanted to say, she also hesitated and found it difficult to say. The woman, Kui Kinkai, said, Mother, you don't have to say anything. I know your difficulties. You have already helped me a lot. It is said that the relationship between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law is difficult, but her mother-in-law is really kind to her. If it weren't for her mother-in-law, the Pei family would not tolerate her at all. Moreover, she also knew about her mother-in-law's difficulties. Her mother-in-law was also the daughter-in-law of the old lady, and the middle income of the Pei family was never in the hands of her mother-in-law. The old lady is the person in charge of the Pei family. The old lady is the most popular person. MRS sighed softly and said, it's not easy for us women, but no matter what, you have to live strong. Only by living will you have unlimited possibilities. Although you are not my chosen daughter-in-law, I do like you. You are the daughter of a noble family. You do things honestly and disdain dirty means. But just because you don't disdain it, it doesn't mean that others won't use it. So you have to learn to be on guard. Kui Kinkai looked at his wife gratefully and said, Mother, I understand. Madam seemed to have thought of something. She held Kui Kinkai's shoulders and said, Kinkai, you listen to me. You must endure all the grievances and unwillingness. Only by living can you have a chance to reunite with the Kui family. I am dissatisfied with your performance and punish you. Although people in the house praise you and despise others, the more you do this, the harder it will be for others to take action. This other person, both Madam and Kui Kinkai understand it. Kui Kinkai nodded. After MRS Kui Kinkai gave some instructions, she asked Kui Kinkai to go back first. After Kui Kinkai returned, a nun came in and said, Madam. Madam handed the bundle in her hand to her confidant and said, Mother Li, I trust you the most in this house. Help me secretly pack the things and have them sent to the Bizhu exile camp and delivered to the Kui family. Can't let the government know. Grandma Li said seriously, old slave understands that I must do things secretly. Aunt Li was indeed Madam's confidant. When she was out of the house to buy things for Madam, she secretly found a confidant of Madam and asked him to find a caravan going to the north and let the caravan deliver the things. He gave the man 100 taels of silver. Because the journey is far away and they are sent to an exile camp, generally no one does this kind of thing. But as long as the money is in place, someone will send it to you. The man promised well. As soon as Grandma Li left, Grandma Ge, the old lady in the mansion, appeared. The man looked at Grandma Ge flatteringly and said, Grandma Ge, this is what Grandma Li asks someone to give as a gift. Grandma Ge said, okay, let's follow the old rules and give me the things. Hey, Aunt Ge, Aunt Li is also Madam's wife after all. If Madam finds out, if she blames me, I won't be able to do anything in Nanzhou City. Mother Ge said coldly, think carefully, the old lady is still in charge of the Pei mansion now, so you dare to offend the old lady. I don't dare. Just pretend you don't know anything and just give the thing away. Besides, I am here to help you if you come into contact with the exile camp. They are all criminals. If you accidentally get implicated, you will die. Yes, yes, that's what Mother Ge reminded me. Grandma Ge packed the suitcase with the baggage, secretly took it into the house, and went to the old lady's yard. The old lady looked at it, waved her hand, and asked everyone in the room to retreat. But what happened? Old madam, my madam sent someone to deliver something to Bizhu again, but the old slave took it back. The old lady sat up angrily, slapped the table angrily and said, foolish woman, she is trying to kill our house and our pay family. The update is a bit slow today. It is usually updated in the early morning. Sorry, I will only update it now. There is still one chapter left and I am still writing it. I must guarantee that 2 chapters and 4,000 words will be updated every day. The space doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fenyuan Candy. Chapter 237. Grandma Ge said, Old madam, please don't be angry. It's not worth it to be so angry that you lose your health. Let me tell you, why would a serious young lady from the Duke's mansion fall in love with our Pei family? It turns out that it was the Kui family who knew something was going to happen, so they came to our Pei family. Humph, I am such a noble legitimate daughter. The old lady spoke, looking very dissatisfied with Kui Kinkai. Look at the way the Kui family looked aloof before. Well, it's not gone now. It's not up to us to decide whether their granddaughter will live or die. Mrs. Pei felt resentful and dissatisfied when she thought of the condescending behavior of the Kui family when she went to Kui mansion. Not to mention that as soon as Kui Kinkai entered the house, the old man said that Kui Kinkai would be in charge of the property, which made her even more dissatisfied. She has been in control of the middle fund for so long, and she didn't even give it to her own daughter-in-law, so why should she give it to her grandson-in-law? Not to mention that Kui Kinkai actually blocked the way of her grandniece. That stupid woman, if she wasn't Nan Chen's mother, she thought I would tolerate her. The old lady said these words with a sinister look. Mother Ge knew the old lady's behavior. Old lady, should we still follow the old rules? Take out all your silver and your beads. Be careful, or all your clothes will be burned. Yes, old lady. As if she had thought of something, the old lady had a sinister look on her face and murderous intent in her eyes. If he is not a law-abiding person, the Kui family will be gone. It will be useless and he will be disposed of directly. Mother Ge was shocked and realized that the old lady had murderous intentions towards the young lady. Old madam, if it's the Kui family, there is a message from above that the Kui family must die. Do you think they will come back alive? They can't leave Bizhu at all. Our emperor will not allow these people to return to the capital alive. What are you afraid of? But Nanchen. The old lady snorted coldly, we forced Nanchen to marry the daughter of the Kui family in the first place. He sacrificed his own interests for the sake of the family. Do you think he would care about Kui Kinkai? Nanchen has a stubborn temper and hates the family forcing him before. It was just for the sake of appearance for our Pei family. Besides, since he's not in the house, I still have the final say in everything. Men, I still like to be gentle and carefree, no matter how noble I am. How much is a man's affection worth? The old man fought to the death for a woman from outside, which caused unrest in the house, but in the end he didn't even bother to look at that person. Speaking of this, I have to say that the old lady is very capable. Actually, Grandma Ge knows that the young lady has a strong character and a character that would rather break than bend, which is unmatched by others. That old lady. Go to Zhuangzi to find things and give them to her soon. The old lady had murderous intentions. She wanted to kill the young lady. It was already dawn when Zhang Ziluo woke up. She was in a trance as she thought about the scene in her dream. So this is Kui Kinkai's experience, and what is Pei's house like? That old lady is really cruel, but she is kind. but Zhang Ziluo felt that with such an old lady in charge, there would be no peace in the Pei mansion. Could it be that the old lady had someone inject the poison on Kui Qingkai? But the old lady clearly said that the superiors want Kui Qingkai to die. Who is the person above? Is there still someone who wants to kill the Kui family and not want the Kui family to live? Is it the emperor or the powerful people around the emperor? Just when Zhang Ziluo was sitting in a trance, Kui Hejin came into the room and saw that she was awake, and said, "What's wrong?" Kui Hejin saw that she was worried. Zhang Ziluo turned her head slightly and met Kui Hejin's dark and picturesque eyes. He was looking at her gently and intently, with a worried look in his eyes. Zhang Ziluo couldn't help but think of Kui Qingkai. It turned out that Kui Qingkai was so beautiful when she was not injured. Sure enough, the Kui family members were all good-looking. Zhang Ziluo shook her head and said, "It's nothing." "How is my sister?" Kui Hejin said, "Mom said it's okay. My second sister slept peacefully last night." Zhang Ziluo breathed a sigh of relief and said, "The medicine she drank worked." She may not have had a good sleep for a long time originally. Zhang Ziluo didn't have much affection for Kui Qingkai. At most, she thought she was familiar with Mrs. Kui and brought her back. She knew she was Kui Hejin's sister, naturally because of Mrs. Kui and Kui Hejin. She wanted to cure and take care of Kui Qingkai. But thinking of the scene in the dream, guessing what Kui Qingkai might have experienced in the Pei family, and thinking of the poison on her body, Zhang Ziluo couldn't help but feel a little distressed. Zhang Ziluo got down from the bed and said, "I'll go over and take a look first." Speaking, Zhang Ziluo went to Mrs. Kui's house first. Mrs. Kui is standing next to Kui Qingkai, holding a wet towel in her hand to wipe the traces on Kui Qingkai's face. She also helped change Kui Qingkai's clothes last night. Mrs. Kui's eyes were swollen from crying when she thought of the scars on her daughter's body. How could she not hate in her heart that the porcelain they were protecting in their hands had suffered like this? "Ziluo." Mrs. Kui's voice became hoarse every time she opened her mouth. She also felt unnatural in front of Zhang Ziluo. She quickly wiped the corners of her eyes. Zhang Ziluo didn't ask any more questions because she was afraid that Mrs. Kui would be embarrassed. She took Kui Qingkai's pulse, checked her body, and changed her medicine. Then used the wood ability for acupuncture. "Mom, don't worry, it's okay for now. After breakfast, I'll make some medicine for her." "Okay." Hejin made breakfast and heated it in a pot. "Let's eat together." After breakfast, Kui Hejin was worried about his sister and wanted to go to school to ask for leave. Zhang Ziluo said, "Don't worry, my mother and I are at home, and my second sister will be fine." Zhang Ziluo said it was okay, and Kui Hejin felt relieved. After breakfast, Zhang Ziluo boiled medicine and gave it to Kui Qingkai to drink. Mrs. Kui stayed by the bed to take care of her. Zhang Ziluo continued to be busy making soap. Yesterday, the shell powder forged from plant ash water and mugwort water were stirred and left to stand there. It has been overnight. Add some plant ash water, that is, lye water, heat the lard, and pour it in. Then stir, that is, perform the saponification process. Zhang Ziluo patiently kept stirring. Thinking about things while stirring her. Including the money given by the Jian family and Wei Xingyi for treating people before, plus what she earned before, excluding expenses, she now has more than 70 taels of silver. This amount of silver seems to be enough, but if Kui Qingkai is added, it may not be enough. Kui Qingkai's injuries were serious. She has to buy medicinal materials again and collect precious medicinal materials to nourish her body. She must be well cared for. Use good medicinal materials to raise her. After a year or two, she will be completely healed. But these all require silver. At the moment, her small business of bread and chili con carne is not going to work at all. What's more, no one knows if there are other people in the Kui family who need her to save. She owed Kui Hejin in the last life, and she must protect him and the people he cares about in this life. So the premise of all this is that she must be capable. Thinking of what MagicalSpace said, she looked a little solemn. When I was thinking about things, the contents in the basin had been stirred into a paste. Then Zhang's Hiluo scooped all the paste into bamboo tubes. Because I made a lot, I installed 9 bamboo tubes at once. The space doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fenyuan Kandi. Chapter 238. After installing the bamboo tube, place it on a table in the yard and let it rest. It will be ready in 3 days. Zhang's Hiluo has finished her work, and it's almost noon. I can't even think about making bread and chili con carne now. The first priority is to take good care of Kui Kinkai. Zhang's Hiluo made dinner at noon. After she and Mrs. Kui had dinner, they went to check on Kui Kinkai. The situation is stable, the poison in her body has not invaded the internal organs, and the wood-type powers and medicinal effects are also working. Her body is also being repaired with the help of wood powers and medicine. After there was no problem, Zhang's Hiluo said, "Mom, my second sister is fine. You take good care of her. I'll go to the town pharmacy to buy some medicinal materials first. The spare medicinal materials are not complete, so we have to buy some precious medicinal materials. The wound on her leg also needs to be smeared with medicine." Mrs. Kui took Zhang's Hiluo's hand and said with guilt and self-reproach, "Hiluo, I have worked so you." She doesn't even know how to compensate Hiluo. I don't know what good things my son did in his previous life, but he has such a good wife like Hiluo in this life. Even the Kui family benefited. If it weren't for Hiluo, she wouldn't have recovered so quickly. Not to mention Hejin's health. Now, Hejin's health is so good that she rarely hears him cough. There is also Kinkai. If it weren't for Hiluo, she wouldn't dare to think about it. At this moment, Mrs. Kui looked very fragile. Zhang's Hiluo felt uncomfortable seeing her like this. She reached out and hugged Mrs. Kui gently and said, "Mom, it's not hard, don't worry. Nothing is more important than our family being well. From now on, our family will work together to live a good life, and we will definitely be able to live a good life, don't worry." Zhang's Hiluo looked calm, and she spoke softly, which had a soothing feeling. Mrs. Kui's nose felt sore for some reason after being hugged and comforted by Zhang's Hiluo like this. She choked and nodded, "Yeah." At this moment, Zhang's Hiluo felt that Mrs. Kui, who had always been strong, was as dependent on her as a little girl, which made her feel distressed. She is not a cold-hearted person. Mrs. Kui is really kind to her, and she really regards Mrs. Kui as her mother in her heart. What's more, she is very similar to Kui Hejin's mother in her previous life, and she is also a very good person. After calming down Mrs. Kui's mood, Zhang's Hiluo drove the bullock cart to the town and went directly to Exiled Pavilion. When the medicine boy saw Zhang's Hiluo, he greeted her happily and enthusiastically, "Miss Zhang, you are here." Zhang's Hiluo wrote some medicinal materials on the paper and said, "Help me grab these medicinal materials and calculate the money." The medicine boy was stunned when he saw it. Many medicinal materials were detoxifying medicinal materials. But the drug boy knows what to say and what not to say. He didn't ask any more questions and hurriedly helped to find the medicinal materials. "Miss Zhang, if you had come a day earlier, there would be no medicinal materials. Fortunately, our Exiled Pavilion has a special channel for transporting medicinal materials. Some medicinal materials were just delivered this morning." Since Zhang's Hiluo knew that Zhuangxingan came from the Western Chu Kingdom, she knew that the Exiled Pavilion in various places was not just as simple as the Exiled Pavilion. It is not surprising that they have a unique and safe way to transport medicinal materials. Although there is no war in Bizhu, there is a war outside. After grabbing the medicine, Zhang's Hiluo didn't wait long and went back with the medicine. After returning home, Zhang's Hiluo grinded the medicine and prepared it. Put away small packages one by one. Some of them need to be boiled for Kui Kinkai to drink, and some of them need to be given medicinal baths. Medicated bath can quickly help remove toxins and impurities from her body. There is also a need to prepare medicine for external application. Zhang's Hiluo has all been sorted into categories for Kui Kinkai's use. In this way, Zhang's Hiluo took care of her carefully for 3 days. 3 days later, when Zhang's Hiluo felt Kui Kinkai's pulse again, she could clearly feel that Kui Kinkai's body had gained warmth and was no longer so cold. Every time the pulse was checked, Mrs. Kui watched nervously. Zhang's Hiluo said, "Much better, I should wake up soon." Upon hearing these words, Mrs. Kui breathed a sigh of relief. In the past 3 days, Mrs. Kui's spirit has been tense. Kui Kinkai didn't wake up, and she couldn't get a good rest at night. Sometimes when she wakes up in the middle of the night, Mrs. Kui would like to see how Kui Kinkai is doing on the bed. Since there was no big problem, Zhang's Hiluo went to the yard to look at her soap. Let it sit for 3 days, and the soap will solidify. Zhang's Hiluo went over and took a look. The top of the bamboo tube seemed to be solidified. She took out her axe and lightly chopped on the edge of the bamboo tube, splitting the bamboo tube open, revealing the long strip of soap inside. You can smell the faint fragrance of Zhang's Hiluo. Looking at the emerald green color, I also think it's pretty. Zhang's Hiluo carefully opened all 9 bamboo tubes, and then carefully placed the long bar of soap horizontally on the table. Then she took out a knife and cut it into small pieces evenly. The bamboo tube is originally round, so the small pieces of soap are round soap. Zhang's Hiluo is arranged neatly on the grate. They are all the same size and look good. After placing them, Zhang's Hiluo counted a total of 130 soaps. These soaps need to be dried for a period of time before they can be used directly. Just when Zhang's Hiluo was busy with this, Mrs. Kui suddenly ran out in a hurry. "Hiluo, wake up, wake up." Mrs. Kui looked at Zhang's Hiluo excitedly. Zhang's Hiluo immediately realized that it was Kui Kinkai who had woken up. Zhang's Hiluo put down the things in her hands and hurried into the house. When Zhang's Hiluo came to the room, she saw Kui Kinkai waking up. She looked confused for a moment, but when she saw Zhang's Hiluo clearly, a look of surprise flashed in her eyes. Seeing Mrs. Kui again, her expression immediately became excited. The eye sockets suddenly turned red. "Mother." She was not dreaming, she really saw her mother. It's me, Kinkai, don't be afraid anymore, this is our home, it's okay, it's okay." Mrs. Kui felt heartbroken when she held Kui Kinkai's hand. Seeing her daughter's eyes turning red, she couldn't help crying. But Mrs. Kui still remembered to introduce her quickly, "This is your sister-in-law. You fell on the roadside. It was your sister-in-law who picked you up and rescued you. Otherwise, my mother would not even dare to think about it." Kui Kinkai was still sad at first, but was suddenly shocked by the news and couldn't care less about being sad anymore. "Sister-in-law, sister-in-law. Her brother is married. Didn't you hear that the Kui family had their engagement broken off before they were exiled? Who is the sister-in-law?" Although Kui Kinkai had just woken up and her head was still a little confused, she looked at the appearance of the girl in front of her. She was 15 years old. She had an extremely beautiful appearance and a noble temperament. Her face was fair and delicate, and her skin was as icy as snow. Although she has an aloof temperament, she also has a magnificent beauty. Very unique, even in the capital, you can't find such a person. He is truly beautiful and beautiful. Even though she was wearing coarse clothes, she looked even more like an orchid in an empty valley, just like the clouds in the sky. Zhang's Hiluo's expression changed slightly, and it felt strange to be called sister-in-law. Zhang's Hiluo nodded slightly and said, "Hello, my name is Zhang's Hiluo. Let me check your pulse first." Speaking, Zhang's Hiluo stretched out her hand to feel Kui Kinkai's pulse. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Space Doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fengyuan Candy. Chapter 239. Chapter 239 Respect, Second Update. Zhang Ziluo stretched out her hand to feel Kui Kinkai's pulse. Although Kui Kinkai was a little shocked, she calmed down and quietly asked her sister-in-law to take her pulse. Kui Kinkai is 17 years old, 1 year younger than her eldest brother Kui Hejin, and her sister-in-law looks younger than her. Although she is young, she looks beautiful and calm, and most importantly, she has medical skills. Kui Kinkai followed her gaze and saw her hand checking the pulse. I just feel that my wrist is as slender as gelatin. Looking very delicate, those eyes are extremely beautiful, but there is a sense of calmness. To be so calm and composed at such a young age, this is not an ordinary girl. She looked up again at the furnishings in the room. Her expression changed when she thought of what she looked like before falling asleep. Is this a rural area? It is similar to some of the houses in Zhuangzi in the past. It is very simple, but it is clean and tidy. There are some small ornaments hanging on the walls, which are very beautiful. There are also some flowers and plants, decorated with various colors, so beautiful. She couldn't help but think of flower arranging. It can be seen that the person who decorates the house is good at arranging flowers. Kui Kinkai nodded secretly in her heart. It's great that my mother and eldest brother are fine. She was even happier for her elder brother. She was really happy that he could marry such a good wife in such a remote countryside. After experiencing so many things in the Pei mansion, Kui Kinkai is no longer the simple and willful girl she was before. She learned a lot and learned to judge a person's character through details. Zhang Ziluo didn't know what Kui Kinkai was thinking at all, she just took her pulse seriously. My health is better, but there are chronic poisons in my sister's body, and there are also severe poisons. I suppress them for you and disperse them a little. There is no fear of life, but my sister needs to take medicine and take good care of herself every day, and cooperate with medicinal baths to keep her healthy. After 2 years, your health will be better. Although the required medicinal materials are expensive, Zhang Ziluo doesn't care about this. Money can still be earned, but what matters is that the whole family is doing well. Besides, although Kui Hejin didn't say anything, she could tell that he also cared about his sister. She could feel that he was very worried in the past 3 days, he didn't sleep well, and his eyes were very bloodshot. Kui Kinkai was even more shocked when she heard this. She knows best how serious her condition is. She thought she wouldn't survive, but even if she couldn't survive, she still wanted to find her and them in the limited time and see how they were doing. Who would have thought that after she heard these words, it would be fine if she took care of her for a year or 2. How come? She couldn't believe it. Mrs. Kui has no doubts about Ziluo's medical skills. After checking Zhang Ziluo's pulse, Mrs. Kui held Kui Kinkai's hand and said, "You heard me, don't worry about anything, you're fine, just take good care of yourself. Your sister-in-law's medical skills are very good. My body has been very weak after the hard work in exile and the exile camp. Thanks to your sister-in-law, my mother has recovered now and feels that there are fewer white hairs. Oh, by the way, there is also your elder brother. Thanks to Ziluo's recuperation, he is much better now. Ziluo, she is the benefactor of our Kui family. You don't know a lot of things. When you wake up, I will tell you many things slowly." Mrs. Kui actually wanted to ask Kui Kinkai what she had experienced. But Ziluo discussed it with them and decided not to ask. She might not be able to explain a sentence or 2. And it can cause heartbreak. Besides, the most important thing now is for Kinkai to take good care of her health. There are some things that you can say if you want to, but not if you don't want to. Zhang Ziluo said, "Mom, we are a family. There is no benefactor but no benefactor. This will make you look like an outsider." "Yes, why don't you tell me that?" Zhang Ziluo said, "Mom, you take care of the second sister first, and I'll make some porridge." The second sister just woke up, and her stomach was a little weak before, so she can only eat light food. Good. Mrs. Kui accompanied Kui Kinkai in the house, while Zhang Ziluo went to cook porridge. She prepared glutinous rice, red beans, soybeans, peanuts, red dates, and other ingredients. Wash and boil. When cooking porridge, you must also control the heat. It should have the aroma of porridge, but also be soft and rotten. Of course, it should not be too soft and rotten. The taste should be better. Kui Kinkai might also be willing to eat more. Of course, Zhang Ziluo uses Lingquan water to cook porridge. This kind of porridge has a stronger aroma, can replenish body energy, and will also increase appetite. At this time in the house, Kui Kinkai stood up and leaned on the bedside, listening to Mrs. Kui talking about the subsequent events of the Kui family. Including the Kui family's conviction, the death of the old Duke of the Kui family and the death of the Duke. However, she downplayed these uncomfortable things and mainly talked about the warm daily life in this countryside. Kui Kinkai is a smart person. After listening to what her mother said, she understood what happened during this period. "I also know that since the eldest brother married his sister-in-law, the life of mother and eldest brother in the country has become better. At least they can have enough food and clothing. And there is a place to live. The most important thing is that the sister-in-law has a certain skill. Such a person will have a good life no matter where he goes. Unlike her, she was really stupid before. She didn't understand the crisis Kui Kuagong had faced, let alone her parents' love and care for her. She only cared about herself at that time, and it was really unfilial to force her by hurting herself." Thinking of this, Kui Kinkai's eyes turned red again. Actually, when something happened to the Kui family, her eyes were red when she heard the news. Originally, her mother-in-law wanted to hide it from her and not let anyone tell her, not wanting her to worry. But some people just want her to know the news and let her die. After crying, she suddenly understood a lot of things. She grew up overnight, but the price of growing up was too high. Grandpa and father are both dead, but fortunately my mother is still alive. Kui Kinkai said hoarsely, "Mom, I will respect my sister-in-law from now on. I will also listen to my sister-in-law." She didn't expect her sister-in-law to be so sensible and powerful at the age of 15. What was she doing when she was 15? At that time, the girl was pregnant. As soon as she met Pei Nanshan, she fell in love. I don't know at all that as the legitimate daughter of the Duke of Guo, she has enjoyed the family's glory and wealth, so she should do something to protect the family. Mrs. Kui felt relieved after hearing her daughter's words and said, "It's good if you understand. Even my mother is willing to listen to Ziluo. She can take care of everything and plan everything, so my mother doesn't have to worry. I feel that she is here, and my mother feels at ease." If she had been in the boudoir before and heard her mother say which girl was better, she would definitely feel uncomfortable. But she won't do it now, she will only be happy and grateful to Zhang Ziluo. "No, I should say sister-in-law. You also know that your elder brother is a cold person, but now I see that your elder brother is so careful and gentle. He cares about your sister-in-law. If you get along with Ziluo for a long time, you will also like her." Kui Kinkai was stunned for a moment and whispered, "Mother, did the eldest brother agree to the marriage between my eldest brother and my sister-in-law?" Kui Kinkai didn't mean anything else, she was just shocked. She knew very well the temperament of her eldest brother. Such a cold person could be gentle and considerate. She was so crazy that she couldn't even imagine it. End of this chapter. The space doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fengyuan Kandi. Chapter 240. Kui Kinkai thought hard about what it would be like for a eldest brother to take care of others and be considerate. Kui Kinkai also felt a little emotional when she thought of her eldest brother's self-restraint and the way he kept his etiquette in silence. It can only show that her sister-in-law has a unique charm. Otherwise, how could the eldest brother, who has seen all kinds of beautiful, talented, and noble women, be special to her alone? Mrs. Kui said, "Your eldest brother naturally agrees. I see them harmoniously and beautifully every day, and I feel very good. You don't know that since your eldest brother married Zhiluo, I feel at ease and happy, but I feel like there is some smoke in the house. When your eldest brother and your sister-in-law have children, I will be their grandmother and help them take care of their children." Mrs. Kui's current thoughts are simple, that is, a harmonious family. Mrs. Kui's eyes turned red when she looked at Kui Kinkai with distress. But when she thought of Kui Hejin and Zhang Ziluo, her eyebrows softened, and she was full of hope and yearning for life. Kui Kinkai was shocked when she saw the change in her mother's expression. However, after experiencing so many things, she also understood that a simple life is the most real. She was also happy for her mother to have such a simple idea. "You don't have to worry. Ziluo said that if you are willing to stay at home, you can stay. There is enough food at home. Besides, your body also needs Ziluo to prepare medicine for you." Kui Kinkai is not a coy character. She can still see her relatives. She doesn't know how lucky she is in her heart. She just wants to be with her mother now. "Mom, I'll stay, and I'll also help the family with whatever I can." Mrs. Kui said. Ziluo said, "You can't work too hard. I'll be anxious if I don't do any work at all. I always have to do something, even if it's to help light the fire." Mrs. Kui nodded and said, "Yeah, that's fine. It's good to have something to do. It's easy to think about things when you're idle. Actually, our Donghe village is quite good, although it is a bit remote and backward. The folk customs here are simple and the people in the village are warm and kind. After living here for a long time, people's hearts will gradually become more peaceful. It's very relaxing." Kui Kinkai nodded and listened carefully to what her mother was talking about. "Mom, let me get out of bed and take a shower." "Okay, Mom, I'll help you." Kui Kinkai said, "Mom, I can do it myself. I feel that my body has some strength." Mrs. Kui said, "Be careful, your feet are worn out. Ziluo prepared the medicine and I put it on you. It feels like your feet are much better, but don't use too much force." When Kui Kinkai went to the ground, Mrs. Kui brought her a pair of shoes for her to wear. Kui Kinkai's previous shoes were already worn out and could no longer be worn. Mrs. Kui herself made a pair of shoes with cotton cloth. The soles were thick and soft, making them comfortable to wear. This is what Mrs. Kui learned from Li Zheng's daughter-in-law, Mrs. Zhu. "Mom, these shoes are very comfortable. Did you buy them?" Mrs. Kui said, "My mother made it with her own hands." Kui Kinkai felt startled and warmed in her heart. Her mother was not very good at needlework before. Kui Kinkai felt a deep warmth in her heart when she wore these shoes. Her eyes were also slightly red. But she has learned to hide her emotions. She was at Pei's house, and she missed home and her parents very much. She hasn't seen her mother for a long time. "Mom, don't you ask about my affairs." Mrs. Kui said, "Those are not important. What is important is that you are well. Mom will feel relieved when she sees that you are well." Reputation. Before Kui Kinkai finished speaking, Mrs. Kui said, "Reputations are all false. Your eldest brother, me, and Ziluo, we don't care about this." This is what Kui Kinkai is most afraid of and worried about. At this time, listen to mother's words made her eyes burst into tears uncontrollably, and tears suddenly accumulated in her eyes. She didn't want to worry her mother, so she suppressed her emotions and forced back her tears. She choked and nodded, "Yeah." Came to the yard, Kui Kinkai found that the yard was large and clean, paved with soft stones, and vegetable gardens on both sides. There is also a chicken coop, which is kept clean and fresh. Take a breath and the air will be fresh. She breathed gently, feeling her body slowly relax. When Kui Kinkai was washing, Mrs. Kui gave her a toothbrush. What's this? This is something used to brush your teeth. It was given by Ziluo. Use this to brush your teeth and your teeth will be clean. Mrs. Kui showed Kui Kinkai how to use it, and Kui Kinkai knew how to use it. After brushing her teeth, she found that her teeth felt very comfortable. She was a little surprised. Her sister-in-law was very different from the women from noble families, and she was also different from the women of the common people. She makes her curious. By this time, Zhang Ziluo had already cooked the porridge. She scooped out a bowl and put it on the table, saying, "Mom, I've made the porridge. Second sister, please drink some porridge first." Mrs. Kui said, "Kinkai, after you wash up, let's go into the living room and you can try the porridge made by your sister-in-law. It's delicious." Kui Kinkai nodded, went into the house and sat down in the living room to drink porridge. Kui Kinkai grew up in the Duke's mansion and ate all kinds of delicacies, including porridge. During the Laba festival, every household drinks Laba porridge. But this bowl of porridge is really delicious and the temperature is just right. When I drink it, my heart seems to be warmed. Mom, this porridge is really delicious. Mrs. Kui said, "It tastes good. Drink it slowly. Your sister-in-law said that you were in a coma for 3 days and you didn't eat well before. Your stomach is very fragile. You need to eat something light to nourish your stomach. You can nourish it slowly and then you will be fine. You can eat normally." Kui Kinkai nodded. She didn't know if it was an illusion. "I feel that after drinking this porridge, my stomach feels very comfortable and I have an appetite." She didn't want to eat at all. She just felt hungry but didn't want to eat. But after taking a sip of porridge, I am willing to drink a few more sips. Kui Kinkai didn't know at all that this was because the porridge was cooked with Lingquan water. It can repair the body and whet the appetite. While drinking, Kui Kinkai's tears fell uncontrollably. "Isn't it delicious? Why are you crying?" Mrs. Kui couldn't help crying when she saw her daughter crying. Kui Kinkai quickly wiped away her tears and said, "I just feel happy to see my mother. Actually, she hasn't had hot food for a long time, and it's all leftovers." Zhang Ziluo saw that it was getting late and was about to make lunch. There was still porridge in the pot, but she and Mrs. Kui were not satisfied with the porridge alone and needed to eat something else. Just when Zhang Ziluo was thinking about what to make for lunch, a loud voice came from outside the door. "Is Sister Kui there? Is Ziluo there?" Zhang Ziluo put down the things in her hands and hurried to the door. Standing at the door was Mr. Niu. "Aunt Niu, what's the matter?" Mr. Niu smiled and said, "It's nothing. The apricots are ripe at the door of our house. They taste very sweet to me. I picked a basket for you. It's not a good thing, so don't dislike it." Only then did Zhang Ziluo see Mrs. Niu holding a basket full of apricots.